Okay, so for these notes, we're going to actually be converting from standard form to scientific notation. Remember, when you have big numbers, that means you're going to have a positive exponent. So we have to convert 76,200 to scientific notation. Your first step, find the first factor by moving the decimal to make a number between 1 and 10 with only one non-zero digit before the decimal. So if we have 76,200, we're going to move our decimal. You don't see one here, and that's because there's that decimal at the end. So if the decimal's at the end, we want to move it between the 7 and the 6, because 7 point something is between 1 and 10, and then there's only one non-zero digit before the decimal. That will give you then 7.62. You can drop off those zeros at the end. Now the second step, it says find the exponent for the power of 10 by seeing how much you move the decimal. Well, if my decimal was at the end, I'm going to put it between the 7 and the 6. That means I went 1, 2, 3, 4 places. So I moved my decimal 4 times, giving me an exponent of 4. So my answer in scientific notation is 7.62, the number between 1 and 10, times always the base power of 10 to the 4th power. Okay? Now the next example. We are still converting between standard form to scientific notation. Now we have small numbers. When we're dealing with small numbers, we're going to have negative exponents. So we're going to convert this small 0.00517 to scientific notation. First, find the to get the first factor, move the decimal between the first two non-zero digits from left to right. So I have here between the 5 and the 1. So remember, you want only one non-zero digit before the decimal. That step says it in a different way, so there's one number between both of those. So that gives you 5.17. You can drop all those zeros at the beginning. Now my exponent, well, let's see how many times we move the decimal. If the decimal was here, we need to get to the 5 and the 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 places. So the exponent is a negative 6. Since this original number was a number less than 1, a 0 point something number, we move the decimal 6 times, but that's going to be a negative exponent. Okay, so here's just a couple more examples for you to look over. Okay, so you can see here we had this big number. That big number is going to give us a positive exponent. The first factor is between 1 and 10. There's only one non-zero digit before the decimal. If it started at the end, we moved it 8 times to get it between the 2 and the 1, so that's why the exponent was 8. This number, well, this number is a small number. When it's 0 point something, you'll have a negative exponent. Now we're going to move it between the 8 and the 7, so we have one non-zero digit before the decimal. If we do that, we move it 3 times, giving you an exponent of negative 3. And this other example, 3,960,000 is a large above greater than 1 number, so your exponent is going to be positive. We're going to move the decimal between the 3 and the 9, so there's one non-zero digit before the decimal. And if we start at the end, because when there's no visible decimal, it's at the end, we are going to move it 6 times. So it gives you 3.96 times always times 10 to the exponent of 6. All right. So now we're going to look at going from scientific notation to standard form. You got to remember about the exponents. When you have a positive exponent, you will have a number greater than 1. So for example, 5 point something, you'll move the decimal to the right. Moving it to the right is going to give you a larger number. When you have a negative exponent, you will make a number less than 1. For example, 0 point something, and move that decimal to the left, because when you move the decimal to the left, you will sometimes end up adding more zeros. Okay, so some examples. It says sometimes we'll say expressed in expanded form. So scientific notation to expanded big long form. Well, my first example, 5.6 times 10 to the fourth power, turns into 56,000. Well, the exponent is positive, so you want to move the decimal to create a number greater than 1. So if you think, which direction do I move my decimal? If I move it to make it greater than 1, I need to go to the right. So I'm going to move the decimal 4 times to the right because the exponent is 4. So my decimal is here. I'll go 1 to the end, and then that means I need to add on 3 zeros. So that's one easy way. So if my decimal was here, I moved 1 to get to the end of the number, and I needed to put 3 zeros on to make it a total of 4 moves. Okay, now on this example, 9.71 times 10 to the negative 5 ends up giving you 0.0000971. Okay, that number is going to be less than 1 because the exponent is negative, so you want to move the decimal to create a number less than 1. If you accidentally move the decimal to the right, just remember the number is supposed to be less than 1, and when you see the number, you'll be like, oh no, I'm supposed to go the other direction. Okay, so remember, to make the number less than 1, you will move the decimal to the left. And in this case, you're going to move the decimal 5 times because the exponent is 5. So if the decimal is here between the 9 and the 7, as I did before, I would go 1 place to the left to get to the end of the number, and then think, how many more places would I need to go to make 5? That would mean 4. So I'd put decimal with 1, 2, the 4 zeros, 971. And that would give me my answer in expanded form. All right, and just some more little notes here for you. Okay, scientific notation to standard form. Remember, the first factor to be correctly written can only have one non-zero digit before the decimal. Okay, times 10. The exponent is how many times you're moving your decimal. Because it's a positive exponent, you're going to end up having a large number as a result. So this number in scientific notation turns to this big number of 4,030,000. And this next example, I have 8.2 times 10 to the negative 5. So here, one non-zero digit before the decimal times my 10. Now since I have a negative exponent, I'm going to have a small number. So if my decimal is here, I need to move my decimal to the left 5 times to create that small number, and I end up with 0.000082. Okay? And last will be your turn. So go through these two examples. It says here, grab a circle, put it over your answer choice. Once you do that, you are finished.